Welcome back to another edition of CCS & Sons Workshop. In this video I'm going to show you how I built this custom workbench that contains an old Craftsman table saw that I own. It also serves as an outfeed table and rolling storage for some of the larger tools that I own. Thanks for watching. This is a quick overview of the state of my workshop before this project. You can see the old Craftsman table saw sitting right here in the middle on an old rickety cart. That was the primary impetus for this workbench, but also to replace the older workbench that I had up against the wall with something more functional and mobile. The first thing I had to do was unload and move all the tools and stuff that I had in my old workbench. I think I moved all of those things at least 2 or 3 times in this whole project just because my space was so limited in the garage. I ended up keeping the bottom of my old workbench. I added casters to the bottom to help make it a little more mobile around the workshop, but I did remove the top shelving parts. I have plans in the future to add a French cleat tool storage wall on that wall you see directly behind the old workbench, so make sure you're subscribed and stick around for that in the future. Another piece of this project that I decided to do was install a lumber rack up on the wall to get some of the material that I had laying around the floor up off the floor to give me more working space in the future. Now that the cleanup's out of the way, let's get to building. Wherever possible, I use the Craig pocket hole system with the heavy-duty wood screws, and when not possible, the 3.5-inch traditional screws. I used this corner clamp that I got from Rockler to help me get the base corners nice and true and square before I built up from there. All of the vertical components were made from 4x4s. My little helper here played a critical role in ensuring that the project was built up to the design specifications. brother joined me for part of this build and helped me knock it out. Meanwhile, the little guy made sure that the vacuum was operating properly at all times. As we start to lay the workbench out and get things in shape, you can see the 4x4 vertical post there. That's going to serve to support the outfeed table, and the general footprint is starting to take shape of the workbench. Once I got the table saw off its old base, I had to measure from the top of the table saw to the bottom of the base to finish the dimensions for the rest of the build. At this point, we were finishing the last supports for the base and getting ready to install the intermediate support for the table saw. Here's a good view of us constructing the intermediate support for the table saw.
Oh, I see. You're gonna do it that way. Cool.
And getting ready to cut the first sheet of plywood for the table saw support. And don't mind the hearing protection sitting on the plywood not being used. This circular saw was actually really quiet. At this point, we were ready to flip the bench on its side so we could install the casters on the bottom. There were only a couple times in the course of this project that I wished I had an engine hoist, and this was one of them. Once I had all the plywood installed on the base, I took a flush trim bit on my router and cleaned up all the edges of the plywood and frame supports. I used a piece of string that was pulled taut flush with the top of the table saw to make sure that the final position of the outfeed table would be just slightly below the table saw top. I did some final sanding around all the edges and rough spots, and we were just about ready to move tools on and call it done. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I have to admit, about halfway through the build I was a little worried that it wasn't gonna work and suit my needs, but it turned out that I love all the storage this thing has. I've got all kinds of flat areas underneath the saw for jigs and push sticks and clamps, and underneath I've also got room now to store my miter saw, my planer, my joiner, my spindle sander, and my air compressor. And as you can see, it turns and rolls really easily. Couldn't ask for anything more. And here's an overhead shot of how the workshop / garage looks now with the rolling workbench in the middle. As always, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you've got comments or suggestions on this build, be sure to leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, be sure you're subscribed and you hit that bell notification so that you see future videos when I release them.